Hey, welcome back to the channel. You're watching SOTK Author Spotlight. In this video, we have personal friend of mine, Chris Ward, introducing his new book, The Path to Purpose. Check this out. So Chris, so excited to have you on today. Just curious for anybody who doesn't know who you are. We've been friends for about 10 years. Maybe this is the first time they're seeing you. What's just a little bit about you? Just give a quick intro of who is Chris, family life, professional, whatever you'd like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a husband. I'm a father of three wonderful children. I'm a businessman at heart. I have a real estate business, help people buy, sell, invest in real estate. And definitely I care about others and the community. So I always have my hands in something to have an impact in the life of others.
Is there anyone who inspires you personally, whether it's somebody that you know that's in your life who's been really influential for you? Who is it that you look up to?
Yeah. So Houston, who's inspiring me right now? I'll share with you this story. So one of the things that I've done over the past 2 years, I've gone from basically just being a couch potato, meaning I don't go to the gym, not intentional about my health and fitness, to a little bit extreme to where, the past 2 years I've signed up and finished 25, 26 different athletic competitions. The person who's inspiring me now is the older gentleman that I see that finishes the race. Let me share with you. There's going back to the Longview Lake half marathon about a year ago this month, actually. There's a gentleman in front of me, like the whole last 4 miles. And I was looking at the back of this guy's head and come to find out it was his 84th birthday that day. And I'm trying to set a personal record of doing my first sub 2 hour marathon. And I find out that, like I said, finishing that race, I'm huffing and puffing, pushing all in. And the dude that is in front of me the whole time just turned like 84 years old. So my point is, person that is the older guy, probably in his 70s and 80s, and still living a life intentionally getting after it, whether that's running a race or being intentional to be a husband, a father, to be a difference maker, whatever that would look like for him in his life. That's the person that's inspiring me. And I make it a point at the end of every race to go meet who appears to be the oldest gentleman.
Okay.
And just strike up conversation and learn from him.
Okay. So I have a question about that. What have your conversations been like? Are there any that like stick out to you even right now that you've had with some of those older guys, like in the races, where you go up to them after and you're like, hey, like, what does that look like? Hey, you look old. Like, let's talk. Or
that's a fair question, Houston, because after all, it's two complete strangers. They don't know me from the man on the moon. Yeah. And so usually what I'll do is I'll walk up to him and say, hey, congratulations on finishing. How'd you do today? And then ask them, what was important to you about being here? How come you're here? And usually they'll start to share a story with me. There was a guy, it wasn't even in a race here recently. It was a guy named, his name was David, actually. And come to find out, we're actually neighbors. He lives a few miles away from me, and I live in Peculiar, Missouri, of all places. So what's the chances of this other guy that we introduce ourselves to each other? We're basically neighbors, come to find out.
Yeah.
And since then, my son and I have fished in his pond, and we've gotten to know each other. And yet when I asked him about who or what's inspiring him to keep getting after it physically, he went on to share that his daughter is a doctor out in Boulder, Colorado, and that every year they make it a point to run the Boulder Marathon together. And this guy, I think he's in his 70s.
Okay.
And I just love the fact that this guy is in his 70s. It's not about the race or finishing or training. For him, there's a deeper purpose. And for him, it creates crossover time with his daughter.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So he's training for that event.
Correct. Specifically so he could get more time with his daughter. It's something that they do together.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
When I think about who is inspiring me right now, I think about my friend David Higginbotham out in Texas. Both of us know him, right?
Yeah.
And yet, for over a decade, this has been the guy that no strings attached, meaning that there's no reasons. He's not getting paid for this. He's doing it just because he cares about me, has basically been discipling me. In particular, he's helped me navigate some of the challenges I've had parenting teenage daughters and raising a family. He's my go-to when it comes to getting marriage advice and working through family dynamics, because as much as you and I talk about challenges in life, one of the challenges that I have, honestly, is going to a guy that's in a similar age bracket as myself to gain wisdom and insight from marriage. So David, I owe a ton of gratitude as a result of his investment in me in helping me navigate some challenging family dynamics.
Yeah.
The other person that comes to mind, and I'll end with this one, is going to be my triathlon coach, Doug, all the way out in the middle of hot, steamy Florida, where the guy's 20 years older than me. You know, I'm 40, he's approaching 60. And the last race that he and I did, it was 144.6 miles. And I was starting the first lap of my 13-mile run. I was midway, and he laps me because he was finishing up the 20.6 miles and the 26.6. He's, you know, and he's 20 years older than me. And just that, what I appreciate is the older guy on the journey that's not complacent, that's still hungry for growth and living a life of intentionality, not only with himself, but about his family, the people that he loves most in his life. Those are the guys that I'm chasing after, that inspire me.
That's cool. Something interesting about all those people that you named is those people inspire you for, I'm sure, a lot of different reasons, but the two reasons that stood out to me were they inspire you personally to hit personal goals, but then also like family dynamics too. So those seem to be two very important things to you, is, you know, being a better person yourself, being, you know, the best man you can be, and hitting your goals and aspiring after things, but then also being a family man, being a great husband, a great father. So it seems like those two things in your life are the main things, really.
That's a great observation, Houston. I haven't really connected those dots until now. And I think what it is at the heart of it is going to be core values. You know, I realized that we could achieve great things and yet not be in alignment with values. And I realized that birds of a feather flock together, that my life looks a whole lot like the people that I'm the closest to, the people I spend the most time with. And for me, you know, not having a strong father figure, since my parents got divorced when I was too little to remember, about 4 or 5 years old, you know, that's something I really desire, is to be an excellent husband and father. And so to me, it makes sense that I would want to be in alignment with people that have the same value system when it comes to family.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to take too much of your story leading into the next question, but I do want to introduce it a little bit.
Okay.
Because how many months ago was it that you reached out to me and asked if I had ever thought about writing a book?
I think about 6-7 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that conversation, you know, ended up bringing me to a point where I'm like, yeah, I would love to write a book. And so that's actually why I have got you on today, is because you did in fact write that book. And so I'm really excited to share with you guys. Like I said in the intro, Chris and I have been friends for about 10 years. And Chris has personally shared just so much of his life and his wisdom with me, and been such an influential person in my life. And so now it's really cool to see that he has written this book, because these are conversations that him and I have had for years in order to help me in my journey grow. And now he's got them on paper, and it's now available for everybody else to have the same type of relationship that I've had with Chris in a more personal way. So I want to move to your book next.
Sure.
Here you are again, watching one of our videos, and you still have not liked or subscribed. Go ahead and do that right now. Thanks. Chris's new book, The Path to Purpose, Finding and Fulfilling Your Life's Purpose. Chris, I'm curious, what inspired you to choose that title? So can you talk a little bit about what that means to you, the path to purpose, and even the tagline, Finding and Fulfilling Your Life Purpose? What does that mean to you? Why did you choose that? And then talk to me a little bit about the cover too, because that's an interesting cover. I like the dynamic of it. The compass right in the middle. I see the mountain and there's like a path. I don't know if all those have specific meanings to you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, the title, where I got that from, Houston, is a few years ago, I was in business with this guy named Paul Teller. And you ever hear somebody say something that just impacts you in a way you just can't forget about? It just sticks with you. That's what happened for when I heard Paul Teller. He mentioned his vision statement, and how he articulated it just off the cuff, and yet it was so powerful and concise, really challenged me. Because I could write out, you know, what's important to me as far as values and mission and vision statement, and yet it would be 2 or 3 pages long.
Right.
And so really he planted the seeds in me indirectly, without he didn't know it. And yet when I heard him articulate it, it challenged me. And I decided that I wanted to gain that type of clarity on my mission and vision in life. Cool. So I decided that I really believe that my mission is to encourage and inspire others to pursue and fulfill their life purpose. Awesome. And that not only that, there's 3 ways that I usually go about that. Number 1 is I help people find the good in the world around them and in themselves. And I believe that, like James 1:5, every good and perfect gift is from God. So if I could help people find the good in themselves and others and the world around them. Actually, I'm helping them potentially see God at work, finding the good in others. And number two is going to be help turn limiting beliefs into unlimiting beliefs. That's they
good.
can fulfill their purpose.
That's good. Yeah. So share with me about the cover, the design on the cover, if that means anything specific.
It does.
Okay, cool. So what is that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Seattle, Washington. Okay. And so after a lot of online research that I learned a lot about logos, and come to find out you just can't straight up copy and paste a cool image like there. You have to pay for it. And so I grew up in Seattle, and in the backdrop of Seattle, there would be, in the skyline, there would be mountains, right? There's a few different mountain ranges, and one of them you would see Mount Rainier.
Okay.
And so for me, when I think about Mount Rainier, I think about just looking past whatever is going on in my life, the circumstances, and looking towards something that's a bigger vision that causes curiosity. Because as a teenage boy, I would look at Mount Rainier, no experience there, never been there, but it was so big and impressive. My mind, it would cause me to dream about visioning what it must be like. Wow. And so for me, the mountain represents just possibilities. Yeah. What if? What else is possible? And then the compass, I believe when it comes to having vision for our life and purpose, that those two are deeply connected. Yeah. And then that's what gives me a sense of going a direction in my life. Okay. Because I was thinking about my son, Matthew. There's a place called the Family Center down in Harrisonville, and you put a quarter in the pony and you ride it. And when he was younger, my son, so you could already imagine him doing this. And I mean, he still wears the boots and has the hat. Yeah. He's a cowboy at heart. And yet he would put the quarter in, we would put the quarter in, and then he would sit there and he'd be riding the horse. And so I think the challenge in life is that it could be equivalent to my son riding a horse, riding the heck out of, rocking back and forth, and yet not going anywhere. Yeah. And so when I think about having a vision and a sense of purpose, it leads to a sense of direction in life. Yeah. We could be moving a lot and yet not be headed in the direction we actually desire to be headed.
That's really good. That's interesting. So that kind of leads into my next question then. Okay. So talk a little bit, because you use two words. Obviously, purpose is on the cover, but then you also said purpose and vision. Yes. So is there a difference between those two? And if there is, what is that?
I'm learning. I feel like I could already write version 2.0 of this book. Yeah. And yet, so my point is that I'm on the journey of working through those dynamics. And it's been one of the challenging things. I put out a Facebook poll and I asked, maybe you saw, and if not, it's okay. It was this: it's which comes first, vision or purpose? And because I think about my own life and experience, it was the vision. It was going downtown, paying 75 cents to take a bus from the south end of Seattle to downtown Seattle to go by the Pike Place Market. They have one little grassy hill. I think it's the only spot with grass downtown. Yeah. And now it's where people take their dogs to pee and stuff. Perfect. And yet my point is this, is that I would go to that grassy hill and I would dream about what was possible. All these people that were sharp dressed businessmen and women, they looked so purposeful in their life. They were headed to wherever they were headed. And it just intrigued me because that looked different than what I was used to at home and some of the environment dynamics that I had. Okay. And it caused me to dream and wonder what life could look like. Yeah. So when it comes to vision, I think vision can lead to purpose. Okay. But also I hear stories, because I'm like you, I like to listen to people. I'm fascinated by people's experience, and I know I could learn from them. So I listen. And sometimes people's story isn't the vision. Maybe they became a believer, or they had an experience where they felt in the first time in their life, perhaps they got a sense of purpose, and that led to them about getting vision for their life. So to me, it seems like, here's where I'm at with it, Houston. I think both of them are mission critical, and yet which one comes first? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the purpose is to be pursuing purpose for our life, which purpose I think ultimately answers the question, why am I here? What is the point of my life? Right. And I think vision is more of the blueprint, if you will, to accomplish the purpose, to answer the question why you're here. Okay. Right. Vision, we could see with our eyes, but vision comes from the heart. Vision is like the Mount Rainier in the backdrop. We could look past our circumstances and have a compelling image of the future that encourages us on the days that maybe are the most discouraging. If we look around and things aren't going the way that we would like them to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyone can have this. This isn't just reserved for a certain
Man,
type of people. This is
that's
for anyone.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
love it. So
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't matter if, like the opening story of my book, I share about having some success where you take a boy that grew up in pay by the week motels that moved over 36 times, not counting the same place twice, and ultimately moved out when I was about 15 and a half.
Yeah.
You take someone with that type of story, and then you fast forward to 2019, where now my wife and we have a house that we've dreamt about together. That's, we're starting to fulfill some of this vision that her and I have with some of these tangible things.
Yeah.
I'm overseeing an office of about 110, 120 real estate agents now. I have a real estate team. I had my highest income earning month. And yet, honestly, on the inside, it led to a moment where I felt dissatisfied. I had this sense of like, what do I do now? I've accomplished some of these things, and I thought it was going to be so much more fulfilling than it was. And yet I'm proud of some of these things that my wife and I accomplished. It caused me to dig deeper and gain the next level of clarity of like, what is my life really about?
Okay.
Because sure, some of these tangibles are nice things to have. And yet on the inside, I think at times we have to go deeper to figure out why we're here, AKA our purpose in life, and really gain some vision about what next looks like for us in our life. So it doesn't matter if you're like some of the people that I share with every week that literally come out of tents that are homeless. It doesn't matter if that's where you're at, or maybe you're having your best year ever, or somewhere in between is probably where most of us land. I think there's a level of clarity, a next level of clarity that all of us could benefit from finding.
Yeah, this is interesting because accomplishments and accolades don't necessarily mean you're fulfilling your life's purpose or fulfilling your life's vision. So, interesting. I don't remember who this was. I saw it on Facebook a few weeks ago. There was an NBA player, or is an NBA player, a current one. I don't remember who it was, but he had said that, he's playing in the NBA, he's making all this money, but he's still not happy and he's struggling, right? And so it's interesting to me, and probably a lot of other people, you think that just because you get to a certain place in your life, whether it be financially or, whatever, that must be what brings fulfillment. And a lot of people are finding out that that's not where fulfillment is found. And that's not where your actual purpose is, but there's actually something much, much deeper that God puts inside of you. And that's what this book is about, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, a few thoughts come to mind, Houston. Number one is that what I don't want to do is villainize money, right? Make money to be the bad guy. Because I think Zig Ziglar is right that money, it's not the most important, yet it ranks right up there with oxygen, right? And we know that money is good for the good it can do. So if you give $10 billion to Mother Teresa, she's probably going to do a lot of good with it, right? And yet if you put it in the hands of someone with the evil heart like Hitler, probably going to do a lot of harm for it. So really all money does is magnify the person's heart. So if somebody has good intentions or not so good intentions, it's going to magnify what's already there.
Yeah. So same thing with like fame or a platform. Not a bad thing,
right?
But it does magnify what's in your heart.
I think, I think so. And that could be very revealing.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Prime. Just kidding, it's not. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Now back to the video.
Chris, I'm curious because when you reached out to me 6 months ago and asked if I was interested in writing a book, I did start the process, and it's still a work in progress, right? You did accomplish it. And you did accomplish that goal, and you've got the book here in front of you. What was that process like in writing? Are there any God moments that stick out to you, or things where you look back and you just say, wow, like that moment right there, I'll remember forever. It was a big part of the process of putting this book together.
Yes. There was a lot there. And yet, going back to the beginning, I've had the idea of writing a book for a lot of years. I would say at least the past decade. And one of the challenges and yet one of the benefits of all of this training I've been doing the past 10 years, that equals to about 80 minutes a day. But that 80 minutes a day leads to being able to do, my last race was 144.6 miles, 13 hours and 14 minutes straight. Reason I bring that up, Houston, is because sure, I've had the idea of writing a book, and yet it really hasn't been a priority. And as a result of all this training that I've been doing, I'm left with my thoughts because you get disqualified from triathlons, Ironman events, that distance in particular. You're not allowed to have headphones in. You're not allowed to have music because, you're not paying attention. It could cause you to be distracted. And you could,
Wow.
if somebody's going past you 30 miles on a bike and you turn and hit them, like
Yeah.
it could be life ending. So it's a big deal. It's against the rules. And my coach, Doug, has taught me that, Chris, we always train like we're racing. Therefore, I said all that to say this, Houston, is I don't listen to anything when I'm training. So I'm left with me, myself, my thoughts, and Jesus ultimately. And
Yeah.
it's been one of the most challenging things because, I mean, just imagine sitting here, no distractions, and it's just you and your thoughts. I mean, that's the land I've been living in day after day for the past 2 years. And so I would say one of the challenges has been is really since day one of saying, you know what, I'm going to write this book. I called you and asked you about writing a book.
Yeah.
Because I decided I was going to write a book, and you know me, it's why I keep inviting you to races and invite you to things like, man, I like for others to be on the journey with me.
Yeah.
And so thanks for being a good team player with that. And it's been messy. It's been painful. Right. I've had moments where my writing coach, Cody, I think I called you that day, if I remember right, or pretty close to around there, where it got to the point where I was ready to give up and I started ghosting him, which is unlike me to do. Ghosting meaning that I had an appointment with him and I did a no call, no show. Basically, I didn't respond to him.
Not like you.
And then I ran into Cody man to man, eye to eye, the same day I ghosted him. And I did the right thing. I manned up and I did the right thing by apologizing to him. We both know Cody. He's very gracious, and he kindly said, hey, Chris, I'm here for you. No pressure. And yet when you're ready, let me know. And that's when I don't believe in coincidences, right? My language is divine appointments. I pay attention to patterns. When things happen, I don't think it's random chance. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was a pivotal moment where I'm like, okay, God, I'm a believer. I'm a follower of Jesus. And so what it looked like for me is because I was trying it in my own strength, right? I have this tendency to want to be good, to look good and be good, to impress others all the time. Yeah. And I got to a spot where I was willing to let go of wanting to be right and look good all the time and actually make progress towards writing my book. And so I just share with Cody, hey, here's where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling. And then honestly, I prayed about it. I said, Jesus, I've done what I know to do, which is I have a bunch of thoughts that I feel disconnected about. I'm not seeing how they connect. I've created a hot mess. Would you help me with this? Yeah. And sure enough, I got some clarity as I was doing an hour run on a hot summer day. I think it was right in the middle of June, sweating my tail off, doing a 60-minute run around the Belton Community Center. I felt like the best way I could describe it, Houston, is it was downloaded to me, each chapter.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I canceled my plans with my family, which rarely happens. Yeah. I would actually say it never happens. Once I tell my family I'm going to do something, and the plan was that day we were going to go to Worlds of Fun. It was a Friday.
Oh, man.
I told my wife, I said, babe, this is what happened on my run. Yeah. I need to write. She said, hey, that's okay. We'll invite my dad, which she did. She invited her dad. And then my 3 children, my wife, father-in-law, they went to Worlds of Fun the entire day. And I wrote for 4 or 5 hours nonstop. No joke. Wow. After being completely stuck, I had some revelation, and then I started writing.
See, that's what sticks out to me the most, is because I remember the day that you called me and you're like, Houston, you're never going to believe this, because we were almost in the same boat there. There, the first however many months it was, just we were inspired to write. Yeah. But it's like, it wasn't fully clicking yet, you know? And then you call me and you're like, you're not going to believe what just happened. And you tell me about this whole God moment where he's downloading these chapters to you, and I'm blown away. I'm like, God, give me that. I need that, you know? So that's the part that sticks out most to me. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when I read books, I don't really think about what the process is behind the author writing, but I think I've just automatically just assumed that it was probably an easy process because, oh, this person's smart. They've got a lot to say. You know, they're a public speaker, they're a pastor, whatever. But it sounds like there's a lot that goes into, especially when you care about what's going on these pages. Sure. I mean, this is your first book that you've written. Right. You wanted it to mean something. God's put something on your heart and you wanted to communicate that to others. And so the process wasn't easy. It was, you know, there was challenges to it, but it's been rewarding.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'm just on the beginning phases of launching this book, as you know. And one thing that I'm realizing, whether it's running a race or writing a book or or life, that it's not about the finished product. It's not about the book being done. It's not about completing the race. It's about who I become along the way.
Yeah.
And the same is true with a book, where the most impactful thing that's happened is not me actually having the finished product of the book. It's how I think now, and the journey of being to a point of being willing to be vulnerable, share some personal stories, some personal struggles, some life lessons, and be willing again to let go of what other people are going to think. You know,
Yeah.
what if people laugh at it? What if they say it's dumb? What if they quote me and tweet me and like and poke fun at it? Just willing to trust and let go and endure the process. It's a lot like a race.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the best thing about a race, sure, what I've learned from my coach, Doug, my triathlon coach, is that it's not about finishing in the race. The finishing the race is just the reward we get for putting in all of the work that goes behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because I think it was last Saturday, I spent 3 hours straight reading it from start to finish. Like
Wow.
nobody knows about that. And that's not the only time I've done that. You know, I took out 2 chapters that maybe I'll have to reshare someday in the future, version 2.0 or something.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, I still plan to take out more to be more with the goal to be more effective and more clear about the message I intend to get across.
Wow. That's awesome. Because I was going to ask you, how do you feel like you're a different man on this side of writing the book? And it would be that being willing to be vulnerable and not care what, I mean, I'm sure you care, but you're not be affected by what other people might think about you.
Yeah. Don't let the fear of what other people are thinking impact really the vision and the mission that I feel called to.
And I think that's hard to do for anybody. That's really difficult. I mean, everyone wants to be liked.
Sure.
And the thought of someone either not liking you or thinking something about you that you know isn't true.
Yeah.
What's that process like of just like breaking down those walls within your mind of like not letting those things affect you?
Yes, I think it's a lot like the older dudes that are inspiring me right now.
Yeah.
Like I realize that on a race, if I'm pushing, doing something I've never done before, whether that's the same distance but a new time goal or a new distance altogether, there comes a point where I'm going to hit a wall. And then the wall represents, I want to clearly define what the wall is. That's the point of resistance. You know, that's the point, like a few months ago when I was doing the Kill Creek Triathlon with some friends. I had some of my buddies there, 2 of them in particular. I had some of my friends from church there, a group of us. Yeah. My children were there, and I hit the wall. This time, what the wall looked like, I mean, it was pretty challenging because I was pushing it really hard on my bike, trying to go as fast as possible. And there was a big crowd of people, including my kids. And I was faced with, do I take a sharp turn and flip my bike, or do I hit the crowd? And
Did you know that 93% of the people who watch our videos are not yet subscribed? I know. We think it's crazy too. So go ahead, like, comment, share it with somebody. Let's get back to the video.
And subscribe.
I flipped over the handlebars of my bike and my head bounced off the pavement. True story, man. So, I mean, that was hitting the wall. The wall is the place where the unexpected happens. I like to call it life happening, which if we're fortunate enough to live enough years, life will happen to all of us, right? So life will happen, and it's in the moment of hitting the wall or life happening, how I respond, that's the opportunity. So back to the Kill Creek story. I don't want to leave you hanging with that. Yeah. Because the EMT came over because I did hit my head. My bike was a little bit damaged. I was close to the transition area where you park your bike, put on your running shoes, and start going. He starts asking me the questions. I just felt startled. You know, adrenaline was going. I jumped up quickly, and I'm a former EMT, so I was self-diagnosing. And the EMT came over, and it became clear that he was going to pull me from the race. And I said, hey, I feel good. I used to be EMT. Please let me finish this race. My kids are here cheering me on. And basically I did everything but beg the guy to let me finish. And I told him, I said, hey, if I start feeling off, I'll find help. I'll stop. I promise. And he goes, okay, I want you to take it easy and let me know that you're okay after you're done. I said, perfect. Yeah. I put on my shoes and I ran as hard as I could. What inspired me was my children being there. I wanted them to learn the lesson that, man, you're going to crash and burn in life. And what we do next is up to us. And my hope is that they have that memory forever, that they saw dad crash and burn, but he didn't stop. He didn't give up. He got dressed. He dusted himself off. He put on his shoes and he ran hard and finished the race.
Yeah. So the vision and purpose was in your mind. You had your kids there cheering you on. There was something inside of you that you wanted to be something that they could look at as inspiration. And so there was this purpose inside of you. There's a vision inside of you just to be an example for someone else.
That's where the magic happens with vision and purpose. Yeah. I look at, at this time I've logged over 10,000 hours of coaching other people. A lot of them in the real estate industry since 2016. And I've picked up on some patterns, not only in the life of others, more importantly, in the life of myself. And there's always a temptation for whatever my goals are to get caught up in the circumstances that probably aren't going the way that I thought they would, and let the circumstances or obstacles cause me to lose track of my goals, meaning that they're no longer important because I must do this lesser important thing right now. Because isn't it funny that the things that are the most important in our life, they don't scream the loudest. Like nobody's reminding me to go on a date with my wife once a week so I can strengthen and build our marriage, our relationship together. Nobody is banging on my door saying, "Hey, Chris, please spend more time with your kids." And yet people are wanting to meet up with coffee. They're, the demands of people, the list goes on. Yeah. And yet it's up to me to protect the things that I deem the most important, but the things that are most important rarely scream the loudest for attention.
Wow. That's interesting. I've never heard that before, but it's so true. Chris, what do you hope someone would get from the book after reading it?
So Houston, the one thing I would want to share from my book, it's right in chapter 1, right in the beginning. And there's a C.S. Lewis quote that says, "We can't go back and change the beginning, but we could start today and change the end." The title is, the chapter or title 1 is called Embracing Your Journey. So what I would like to share is right from chapter 1. It would be, we do not have to hold ourselves captive to how we've always done things. I think there's a tendency just to repeat our yesterdays, meaning, hey, I'm getting older. This is how I've always done it. It's always been this way. Punt on that, right? Level up, meaning that just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that we have to keep doing it that way. Why not reinvent yourself today? Gain clarity on your purpose for your next, gain the next level of clarity on your purpose, the next level of clarity, gain the next level of clarity on your purpose and your vision, and take action. Take that next step. Why not reinvent yourself? Why not get more clarity about who you desire to be someday at the future? I mean, heck, fast forward all the way to the end of your life. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered being a husband, a father, a grandparent, a spouse, a friend? Yeah. What kind of impact? This is where it gets good on purpose and vision. It's one thing to have some desires for self. Next level is impact in the world, right? What kind of impact do you want to leave in the world? What good do you want to do in the lives of others? Those are some powerful questions that have really helped me go to the next level of purpose and intentionality to gain clarity on my life's purpose and vision, honestly.
That's good. Something that I really like about this is I know we already talked about who this book is for, and you mentioned, the different type of people. Most of us find ourselves in the middle of the two on the spectrum, but also, like, I want to point out, this is also for the person who may feel stuck in their journey.
Yes.
Or also aspiring for more, and they're on that journey already, but this just gives them a boost.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, who's this book for, Houston? It's for the person that's stuck. It doesn't matter how much success you've had or haven't had. Maybe you just find yourself in a season of looking for the next step to take in your life. I would say grab this book, and my commitment, I trust that there would be at least one thing that you could put a star next to that would be your next step to discover more clarity for your purpose or vision for your life.
I love it. Love it. This is crazy because I had no idea what you were going to say before sitting here with you today, but it's that exercise. You actually did that with me back in 2019. I remember I was living at my own old house. It was right before we moved when we were living in Blue Springs.
Okay.
And you had me like, I was in the backyard just talking on the phone with you. And I don't know, we were just catching up on something. You're like, hey, I just learned to do this. And it was like really like life changing for me. And you told me to do this and then write down like the
envisioning your older future self.
Yes, you did that. And let me tell you something. I thought like at the moment, I'll be totally honest with you. I was like, I'm sure this is like good. Like I just didn't know how much it would actually impact my life. Dude, I am not kidding. After doing that, my life began to change like crazy because I had this new perspective. You know, and I think a lot of people, we get caught up in just like going through the motions in life or letting life just take us where it wants to go. And I think a lot of us find ourselves at a place at some point in our life just wondering, is there more to this? Like, am I made for more? Because at one time there could have been dreams that were inside of us. Or maybe there, you know, are currently some dreams, but we don't really know what to do with them. And that exercise right there of just envisioning, like for me, the one that you took me through was envisioning like, you know, my older self and having that conversation with myself. But the one that you just shared was like, you know, at the very last, you know, whatever part of your life, what's your spiritual, like, you know, relationship with God look like with your wife, with your kids. Having conversations with yourself and with God about those things really do, they can change your life.
Sure can.
Like the whole like trajectory of your life. And I'm like, you did that with me several years ago, 5-6 years ago, and it really did have a huge impact on me. That's a great piece of information that you could share right now. I've got the book, so I'm excited. I haven't got into chapter 1 yet, but I'm really excited to read that because that is something that helped change my life as well. What's one thing from your book that you could share right now?
Ooh, only one thing.
Just one thing.
I think I'd have to pick chapter 1, embracing your journey. There's a C.S. Lewis quote right at the beginning that we cannot go back and change the beginning, but we could start today and change the ending. And I think all too often in my life and the life of others that we hold ourselves captive to how we've always done things, right? So maybe somebody's not ever been intentional to think about vision for their life. When I think about vision, this is what I mean. You close your eyes and you envision what could be. Who do you want to be someday in the future? Interesting exercise. This one day I share in this book, chapter 1, actually, I had this breakdown moment in 2019. And I have the big flip chart that I bought from Office Max. And I went through these key areas of my life. There was about 7 of them. My spiritual life. I went all the way to the end of my life and I was gone. Family members and loved ones were mourning my loss. And I was up there in the box. And I thought about the last year of my life. What do I want my spiritual relationship with God to look like? What would be the indications of a thriving relationship spiritually? Then I went next to, what about in the relationship with my wife? How do I want to finish in that? What kind of impact do I want to have? And then I went about financially. What do I hope to accomplish during my life financially? Then I went through to the impact in the community. Yeah. So it's simply put, Houston, it's this: start today in envisioning really what your heart's desires. The one best tip that I've discovered that's been the most helpful: you don't have to sign up for triathlons to have quiet time. Maybe start with having 2 minutes of quiet time where you reflective journal and you think about, who do I want to be someday in the future? Whether it's the end of the road when it's all said and done, or if it's a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it doesn't matter. Pick a point in the future and dream about who you desire to be.
So there you have it. I hope you liked this episode. Obviously, I wasn't there to be a part of it, but even in watching this episode, I feel like I've gotten to know Chris so much better. I look forward to the day that I can meet him. But until then, we hope you liked this video. We hope you learned a few things. All the links to reach Chris, as well as to buy his book, can be found below in the descriptions. And please don't forget, if you could like this video, make sure to click that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so you're notified each time we drop a new video. And with all that being said, take care. We'll see you next week and be safe.